Hello and welcome back to the worst Warmachine channel on the internet. I'm Malorian, and this is Malorian Weekly. Now today, we got a spicy, controversial topic to talk about because what we're going to be tackling is, should Riot Quest be discontinued? And this is controversial because there's people that really love Riot Quest, there's people that really hate Riot Quest, and then there's all these people in the middle where they're like, I don't even know what Riot Quest is. You know, sometimes I go buy my Warmachine and there's this weird Riot Quest name on there. Is that what you're talking about? So what we're going to do to try and tackle this fairly is we're going to go through and first really just talk about what this product is. Like, what is Riot Quest as a product? Not diving into the weeds like this is the rules, this is how you play the game so much, as just what in a summary is this game so that we're all on the same page. Going past that, we're going to cover all the negatives. So all the people that hate Riot Quest, these are all the reasonings that they be bringing up of why this is a horrible product, that's why it's making things awful, and it needs to go away. Then we're going to switch over to the positives so that all the people that love Riot Quest, these are all the reasons why it should be here and it should be kept going. And then finally, what we're going to do is try and compare those negatives to the positives and try and make a decision about whether we feel, you and I, this should actually be discontinued or not. And then also just briefly talk about what we think Privateer Press will do. So let's jump into it and talk about what Riot Quest really is. Now, Riot Quest is another kind of sub-game that's made by Privateer Press, but still kind of linked to the whole Warmachine franchise. It's really the brainchild of Will Hungerford, and really the best way to try and describe it from a fluff point of view is that if you took the regular Warmachine timeline to where the Oblivion campaign happen, right? The Infernals come, they want to take their 2/3 of all the souls in payment. There's a branch that's the normal Warmachine timeline where basically the world is going to win and defeat the Infernals. But the Riot Quest is a little side time branch of, well, what if the Infernals actually won? What if the Infernals basically took away 2/3 of the souls? Everything's in ruins. The whole world's just kind of like this awful apocalypse where people are just struggling to stay alive for those people that are still there. And then so the way that this actually kind of works then as a functional game is that it's a skirmish size game, right? It's not made for big armies. It's just a little band of warriors that be going out trying to be finding loot. And there's kind of a silly atmosphere to it because even though you'd think like, oh, the apocalypse, like everything's, you know, like grim and dark and all those things. No, it's not like that at all. It's just like, hey, look, all these things where people maybe were trying to hold back before, now you can't. You just got to go for it. Crazy people are doing crazy things. You're seeing wacky things going on here. And so it's a really different feel from like the steampunk that we would have seen from Warmachine in its origin. Now it's kind of like this more silly, you know, wacky side of the game here for this battle to get loot. So that's really what Riot Quest is. The last thing I should really explain is how it links with the game model-wise, in that they said from the very beginning that maybe not all models are going to cross over, but so far, other than some like terrain pieces, every single model you see in Riot Quest can also be used in the regular game. First, they did a whole bunch of things where they're all mercenaries, and now they kind of learn their lessons, and they're spread out through the factions. There's even some casters in there, right? They're not just solos. There's even some casters that you get in there as well, like Fiora 4 and Karchev 2. So, and Lilith, the new Lilith, is in there as well, right? Like, so there's a little bit of scattering of these things. You're seeing actually like the combo characters where you have like, you know, Dez shooting out the goblin there. So, I mean, again, going back to how the stuff is silly. Now, let's take that and say, like, that's what this product is. And so for those who are saying, this is now not good, this is something that should be discontinued, what would be the reasons for that? And I think one of the first things that people would say, and the reason why I'm making this video, is because Will Hungerford's no longer here, right? This was his baby. This is something that he really wanted to kind of get out there and play with and have fun, and he's no longer here. And that's bad for a couple of reasons. One, because the whole mastermind behind this is no longer there. So if there's somebody that's kind of like keeping everything in place from a design perspective, you know, if that's not there anymore, right? It's stuff just going to go now wonky, and then it's just going to be like super powerful, super under powerful. I mean, think of the people that actually play the Riot Quest game, right? Like, are the things that's not going to make sense that are going over there? Or maybe now that Will Hungerford's gone, they just don't even have the staff to be doing this anymore, right? There's only so many people that can be doing so much work, and if your main person that was working on this is now gone, and you still have, you know, Warcaster and Warmachine and Hordes and anything else they might want to be doing, like their D&D style books and campaigns and stuff like that too, you just can't do everything at once. And so are you just going to like stop and not do anything, which is basically just discontinued? How's that really going to work? Now, another thing that people say that is a negative is also kind of saying too what I said there before about how the feel of the game is, where it's wacky. Whereas for the whole world, where before it was like this steampunk type of thing, a little bit more serious, now it's kind of ridiculous, where you got like these silly goblins and a princess with bazookas and all these like robotic, you know, what is that thing? The shredder that's going around? Like, how does this stuff make sense? When you see the two things side by side, one's kind of like serious steampunk, the other one's just wacky. And it also makes it a little bit weird to look at theme-wise when it's on the table, because it's like, well, what timeline are we doing? Are we thinking this is the normal timeline where we won and we should be seeing this? Or is it that we lost and now we should be seeing this stuff that it survived in the apocalypse? It doesn't make sense to see it on the table. I know there's also been people that have been worried that this stuff is overpowered, that all the stuff that they're trying to sell in Riot Quest, because it goes over and plays in Warmachine 2, they're pushing the rules, it's too powerful. Whenever you see a list that's going to be having all these Riot Quest models in there, it's ridiculous, it's just power creep. And then also the way it goes into lists as well, especially in the beginning where it's all mercenaries, and you're just making mercenaries super powerful, and if it's in mercenaries that's going everywhere and everybody can take these things, they need to be limited. And even now that they're doing better on that and making sure that they're faction specific or a couple of faction specific, you know, now we're going to model bloat where we knew we needed to control things. And look at this, it's just like a diarrhea of solos, just blah, solos everywhere. And so going from a staff wise reason, from a gameplay fluff, you know, it just doesn't make sense. We should just cut our losses now and say, you know what, that's it for Riot Quest. It was nice to be done while Will Hungerford was here. He's not here anymore. There's not the staff. It doesn't fit. Let's just cut our losses now and say it's discontinued. And we're just going to continue on focusing on Warmachine, and that's the way we're going to do it. All right. That's the negative side. So if that's the negative side, what's the positive side that we're going to actually go and compare this against? Now, I think the first thing that we should be looking at when we're talking about this here is maybe even just countering some of the things we said on the other side. I mean, the one positive thing to start off with is we said that, you know, Will Hungerford is gone. Do they have the personnel? Well, Riot Quest is in a spot right now that you don't really need to do anything really substantial. The game is already well established. There's already been several expansions, and you would have to be putting in minimal effort right now in order to keep that game going. And there is a community of people that only play Riot Quest. I think one of their first ideas is that people will be playing Warmachine and Riot Quest, and it'd be like this idea that if you're at a tournament or a con and you had some spare time, hey, grab those models, let's quickly go do a Riot Quest game or something like that, and that the two would kind of be more interwoven. But that's not really what I've seen. There's the people that really like Warmachine, there's the people that really like Riot Quest, and the reason why you then would want to keep Riot Quest is that if you were just to be like, well, that's it, we're done, they would be so let down. Think of all the people, if you know from like the GW games, where they played those and they said, nope, we're not doing that anymore. Or for Guild Ball, where nope, we're not doing it anymore. And they're not going to come back and play Warmachine. Probably the vast majority of them are just be like, well, screw you, Privateer Press, I'm going to go do something else now. So this would be just a player base you would just lose by doing this, when it's something that's really simple to upkeep and just leave there. I think something else to keep in mind here too is that solos in general have a very small impact on the game, right? If you're something like a Colossal or your big caster or something that's like big and powerful, worth a lot of points, that has a big impact on the game. These little solos for the most part don't. So that whole argument that this is kind of bloating and being overpowered doesn't really apply. There's like some notable exceptions, but if we look at the full range of everything that's actually Riot Quest, you know, you might think of like, well, what about Harlow? What about Scythe? Yeah, that's a couple of options, but for the most part, these are just all just not seeing any play at all in Warmachine, although they do kind of fill a niche and sometimes too, and it's nice when they're available. So it's not really damaging anything, and if anything, it is giving that real choice for customization and fun. There's those people there that I said that were like, you know what, Warmachine's supposed to be serious, it's supposed to be steampunk, and now we're having all these silly things come out. Maybe it's good to have some silly. You know, like if I look at other games, like I'm a Magic the Gathering player, there's unsets. You have these silver boarded sets where they're just silly, where there's like squirrel launchers and all this wacky stuff. So like the regular game, you know, like dragons and ogres and blah, 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 like those types of things. And then when you come for the fun set, you know, it's a nice thing to relax. And if with permission, you can mix these things and stuff like that. But it doesn't take away from the seriousness that's normally there. It's just an extra thing that's nice to do now and then. That's why they do these every once in a while, just to make things fun. And, you know, if somebody's going to enjoy playing these silly models like Weird Wendell, where like, who knows what's going to happen when I shoot that goblin? It's random every time I shoot it. If they want to do that, who cares? Let them. And if for some reason your argument is going to be, well, this is not the game that I started. It was supposed to be steampunk, and now it's all just ridiculous. Well, wait a second. This is a very different game from when I first started playing this near the start of Mark II. You know, all of a sudden now, not Riot Quest related, we have demon armies that are all over the place, where they're summoning and popping up all over the place. Archons have shown up now, and you got these Archons you got to be dealing with. You got these super, you know, crazy solos like Gatsby 4 and Nemo 4 to be in there. Like, this is not the old game that it used to be. And that's a good thing, right? Things need to change. Things need to develop. If everything was just a boring steampunk, I have a jack, you have a jack, let's smash until something's dead, that's going to get boring. You need new little elements in there. And all these little pieces that they can kind of play with in Riot Quest and just like leak over. It might come over first as like one silly solo with a silly ability, but this is really something that the developers can test with and be like, oh, that actually worked out okay. What if we made this a unit? What if we made this a caster, and really lets them then dig more into whole other systems and ways that they could be, you know, expanding what they're actually doing in the regular Warmachine game. So I don't think any of those arguments really hold water. I think that it's really just adding a lot of interesting things into the game that makes things more fun. And I think maybe the one thing that I can't really argue with from the good side is that model bloat. I mean, the fact that there is lots of solos going out there, pretty much the only thing I can say to that is where most of them don't even really apply, right? For the most part, 90% of the Riot Quest models you never see in competitive games. But hey, for those who want to play with them, go ahead, they're there. There's people that really love playing the game. There's people that really love seeing the models in there and having fun. And really, if we all just kind of like loosened up and said like, this is not the ultra competitive game anymore, we're going to actually have some fun in it, it might be good for everyone because, well, like we've talked about before, it really hurts getting new players into the game when your ultra competitive people come and just like smack them down and be like, yeah, get good. Guess you should have known that I counter charge. Okay, you lose. See you next week. Like that doesn't bring people back. Whereas we're like, wait, what's going on? That guy's like has a goblin and a bazooka and you can shoot it out, and like those type of things are more interesting. So I do feel, and let's take this next step now. This is now comparing the positives to the negatives. I think when it really looks at it, when you really look at everything from what the positive are and the negatives are, they kind of are each other, right? A lot of times they're two sides of the same coin, and you'll have one people on one side saying like, this is a big issue, it's really messing things up. But when you look at the other side of the coin, the arguments are just the opposite. Like, no, this is actually a good thing, right? That's not actually a big problem. And so I think really taking that and saying from my perspective, and hopefully you're on the same page as well, is that Riot Quest might as well stay here. We didn't actually talk about this in our positive thing because it's probably not something that you or I should be thinking about. But also something to consider is that Riot Quest is hugely successful financially for Privateer Press. You know, whenever Privateer Press wants to put out some models, you know, you can push things like, I went today and bought 2 Death Archons because they really good, but anything else where they're going to try and keep things balanced, who knows if it's going to sell? It's really risky. But what happens with these Riot Quest models, right? They usually come out as a package. So if you want one, you got to kind of buy them all. It's on Kickstarter, so it's safe for them. I bet they wish they could be doing everything across Kickstarter. Like Kickstarter Archons, you buy a box of 5 that has one of each of them type thing, right? Like that's the perfect business model for them, and it's making them a lot of money. So it's very straightforward. Boom, put it out. The actual game mechanics itself are very simple at this point to keep up. And now it gets to be a simple thing like, okay, next wave, here's this next set of solos. We probably could have done this as a normal release, like we're putting out this solo for Convergence and this solo for Khador and this solo for whatever, but we're just going to now say, instead of doing this and hoping they sell, we're going to put it out as a Riot Quest package, and so the Riot Quest people will eat it up. Anyone that plays Warmachine and plays any one of these, they're going to eat it up. We're also going to have a bunch of little side models, which are obviously really cool and you probably want to grab because they're either, you know, really good or just hilarious or both. So financially, it does so well for them. And one of the things that, again, two sides of the coin that we should be trying to think about is that as Warmachine players, even if we're grumpy, we're like, well, I don't care. Riot Quest stupid. I just want to have everything Warmachine. Well, the more money that Privateer Press makes from Riot Quest, the better off they are as a company, and the more that they can invest in having staff that can be doing things like developing Warmachine. So we want these things to be successful. So even though I said that at the end here, we'll be doing an analysis, I think it's pretty clear. You know, where should we be going from right now? Should Riot Quest be discontinued? No, it shouldn't be. It's at a spot right now where it can be easily continued with minimum effort, and then it's really adding a lot of fun splashes to the game that's getting people into it and making people enjoy it. And if nothing else, it's making money for Privateer Press so they can do more things like developing Orgoth or whatever next thing they're doing for Warmachine. So I think that they should keep it. I don't think they should discontinue it. What will Privateer Press do? You can be pretty sure they're going to keep doing it, right? You have all these sculptors out there that, sure, this was like, you know, Will Hungerford's big thing, but there's so many people where you got to imagine where like, okay, your job is to make things for Legion, but they're like, but I had this funny idea. Okay, but too bad you have to do Legion. This is that perfect outlet that for all these people where they want to be doing this silly side project, like, but I want to make a bear named Bumbles. Well, that's great. Do that too. And we'll put it into Riot Quest. And that way the sculptors are all happy. Everything's coming to us here. And whether you're going to play it for fun or because it's good, it's just so good, people. So I've heard these arguments that Riot Quest should go away. And hopefully through all this, I convinced convinced you that mainly, one, it's not going to go anywhere, right? Privateer Press is going to keep doing this as long as they can. And two, comparing the positives to the negatives, it's really fine, right? The only negative we really couldn't counter was the fact that we're getting so many solos, but really from a game-wise, they don't really all see play anyway, right? Just a little like top 5% of them. So there you go. If you have differing opinions, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that do, maybe I missed something, put it down there in the comments. I'd love you to share that. We could talk about it more. But otherwise, yeah, I hope you like this. I hope you like Riot Quest and Warmachine, because we're going to be seeing more of it going forward. All right, there you go. Thanks for watching. Bye.